This is the first of 2 steps of laying out your quilt. Step 1, you'll need your calculator worksheet. This is in your folder of different PDFs. You'll need a calculator and a pen. You also need all your blocks here. What you do is you're going to count your blocks one by one, but you want to be sure you count very, very carefully. If you've miscounted even one block, you're going to have to come back to the beginning when you realize that you've miscounted. So please count carefully. So I start with my largest size block. And as I was cutting, I wrote down the sizes of the large blocks at the bottom of my worksheet so that I would know what size blocks those are when it came to counting. So my largest block here is a 20 by 24. And I know I just have one of those. So I take my pen and I mark next to my 20 by 24 that I have one. Then I go to my next size. My next size is my 16 by 24s. And I have 1, 2 of those. And I always go to the other end and count 1, 2. So I actually know exactly how many I have. Sometimes, if you're not careful, a block will the corner get turned under, and when you are going to count it, you don't see that corner. So make sure you count from 2 corners. So I have 2 of those. So I'm going to stack these blocks so that the corners of all the blocks are right there. All right, the next size I had 2 of those. I have to write that down. 2. I have a 12 by 24. I have just one of those. So again, I lay it on top of my other blocks and I line up my corners. And then I go to my worksheet and I mark down how many I have. And the next size that I have is a 12 by 20, and I have one of those. Again, I'm going to stack them up so the corners line up. When you go to lay out your quilt, you'll understand why I want the corners to line up. The last of my oversized blocks are my 16 by 20s. So I need to count these. I need to be really careful when I count these because some of them are backed. I got to make sure I don't count the backs. I just want to count the fronts. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to count from this end. 1, 2, 3. So these 2 belong together. 4, 5. So I have 5 16 by 20s. Next, I'm going to start on my standard sizes, and I start with the 16 by 16s. I have one 16 by 16. Next, I'm going to do my 16 by 12s. I have 2 of those. Please note there's a difference between 16 by 12s and 12 by 16s. They are not the same. They are the same size blocks, but they are not the same orientation. So to count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come up to the other corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll remember to count them twice after you make a mistake and have to go back and redesign your quilt from the beginning. All right, so my next size block is an 8 wide by 16 tall. I have one of those. Next size is my 12 by 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. T-shirt likes to stick to t-shirts, and sometimes you'll pick a piece up and you won't realize that there's 2 pieces there, so it's really important to count carefully and to look deeper into the pile. 2, 3, 4. Next size I have is 8 by 12s. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we have one 8 by 8. We have already cut the filler blocks for this quilt, but I'm going to count them anyway. So these are my 12 by 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my 8 by 4s, and I have 2 of those. You're going to get in trouble with your counting when you have a large stack as opposed to just 1 or 2 blocks. 1, oops, there's 2 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Turn it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And last but not all, I have my 4 by 4s. 4 by 4s is a really good place to get lost because they're small, and sometimes you get a big stack of them. So when I count my 4 by 4s, I count them in groups of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So I'm going to count them quickly again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 is 12. So I have 12 fillers. All right, once you have your blocks stacked and counted, I like to roll them up and put them in a plastic tub. So I'm going to roll them up. And if you have slippery shirts, they might slip around a lot. And then I pick up the tub and I put them in the tub. That way they're segregated from any of your other work, and you can close the lid and you know nothing's going to happen to those blocks. Once that's done, it's time to grab a calculator. Now that you've recorded the number of blocks you have of each size, we need to multiply the number of blocks of that size by the number of square inches of that block size. So we know exactly how many square inches we have. For example, we have one 16 by 16, and we're going to multiply it by the square inches of a 16 by 16. To calculate the square inches, 16 times 16 equals 256. So I'm going to multiply 1 by 256. That gives me 256. Easy. Continue multiplying the number of blocks by their square inches and record that number in column E. After you've calculated the number of total square inches for each size block, add up the total square inch column and record this number in the sum of the total square inches box. I usually recheck my adding at least once. Next, we need to take the square root of the total of all the block sizes added up together. So this is box number 1. But don't worry, you don't have to do the square root by hand. Most calculators have this great little button. Looks like a check mark. That's your square root button. I take the number that's in box number 1, 6688. All I have to do is press the square root button. My square root is 81.78. So we calculated 81.78 as the size of your quilt, if your quilt was perfectly square. But your quilt's not going to be perfectly square. And that's also not divisible by 4. So now you need to take this 81.78 and you round it down to the next lowest number divisible by 4. And I've written here all the numbers that are divisible by 4 for you. So 81 would go down to 80. So I put an 80 here. This is the width of the quilt. Next, I clear my calculator. I take this number 6688 and I divide it by 80. That gives me 83.6. Now I need to round that number up to the next highest number divisible by 4. So I round that up to 84. So here in 3 and 5 are the width and length of your quilt. So it could be 80 by 84. But to me, 80 by 84 is too square for my quilt. I want it a little longer and skinnier. So what you do is you take this 80 and you round it down to the next number divisible by 4, becomes 76. And you take this box, 84, and you round it up to the next number divisible by 4, and that becomes 88. So to me, this is a better size, 76 by 88. To make sure that the math comes out right, multiply 76 by 88, and that gives you 6688. Perfect with that. So that's going to be the size of my quilt. Sometimes the quilt size that you calculate will actually have more square inches than you have of blocks. So to compensate and to fill up those blank spots, you're going to use blank blocks. Blank blocks can be 4 by 4s, they can be a 4 by 8, they can be a 12 by 4. We try to keep them fairly small so they don't dominate the quilt. So let's look back at the first size we figured out. That was an 80 by 84. If you multiply 80 by 84, you get 6720. 6720 is less than 6688. Remember, 6688 is how many square inches of blocks you have. 6720 is more than 6688. So when you subtract the 6720 from the 6688, you get 32. A filler that's a 4 by 4 is 16 square inches. So divide 16 into 32 and you'll get 2 fillers. The math with the other one, 76 by 88, it came out to 66 by 88, which is how many blocks we have, so we needed no fillers. Now that we've figured out the size of the quilt, our next step is to figure out where each block will go on the quilt. This next step is difficult, but we'll walk you through it step by step in our next video.